Our next guest is a New York Times best-selling author who's best known for his book, The Traveler's Gift. Andy Andrews is joining me now to introduce us to his latest read called The Heart Mender that's causing quite a stir in the literary world. Andy, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
Now, you've written a lot of popular books, but you have an interesting story of how you got into writing. Tell us a little about that.
Well, actually, I had a crazy time in my early life, and I was born in a very normal middle-class family, but when I was 19, my parents died. My mom of cancer, my dad in a car accident, and I've always had the ability to take a bad situation and make it worse. And I did. I made some bad choices and ended up literally homeless before that was a word. You know, 30 years ago, nobody's talking about homeless people, but I was living under a pier on the Gulf Coast and, you know, in and out of people's garages. But I met an old guy late one night who got me started reading. And I was always a Sports Illustrated kind of guy, but he got me started reading biographies. And over the next several years, I read over 200 biographies of these happy, influential people, trying to think, you know, what is it about them? How did they get this way? Were they born this way, or is it something they did? And I found 7 things that they all had. There's 7 principles that their lives were guided by, and it was very curious to me. It seemed like 2 or 3 or 4 of them were very active in their lives, but 2 or 3 or 4 of them were kind of passive. It was like we could see them with the passage of time. I wasn't sure they knew they had them, but I thought, what happens to a life who knows all 7?
Very interesting. And that was what you learned from that is actually the premise of your most popular book, The Traveler's Gift.
Right, yeah, those became the premise of that. When The Traveler's Gift came out, you know, my books are now based on principles, but they're stories, and so these principles work every time.
And you've even gotten some phone calls from some presidents.
Right, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I've worked with a few of them, you know, that they've asked some questions along the way. I've spoken at the request of 4.
And you're sharing a new story in your new book, The Heart Mender. Tell us a little about that.
This is an amazing story that kind of sprung on me. I found some Nazi artifacts on the Gulf Coast. I live on the Gulf Coast, and I'm thinking, what in the world are these submariner buttons and a Knight's Cross and swastikas and pictures doing, you know, on the Gulf Coast?
Right.
And I found in my research that there is a whole part of American history that most of us don't know, and that is that German submarines were in American waters in World War II, sinking ships and killing people. They sunk over 800 ships in American waters, killing 3 times the amount of people we had killed in 9/11. Almost 9,000 people killed with enemy attacks. And so the story of The Heart Mender is the story about a German officer who considered himself a German, not a Nazi. And he was betrayed by the political officer and shot and wounded, made it ashore in America, and found by a young, beautiful American war widow who almost killed him with her bare hands when she saw that Nazi uniform. But the story of The Heart Mender is how they hid in 1942 America, why she finally decided to hide him, how they hid, why they hid, and what happened because of it.
Wow, we cannot wait to read it.
The ending still blows my mind.
This
is my favorite thing I've done.
We'll have to pick it up, The Heart Mender. And speaking of the coast, you live on the Gulf Coast.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about the oil spill. You said you can put a positive spin on just about anything that's gone wrong. Well, what's the positive perspective on this?
It's not a positive spin. It is a way of looking at things. Because people are very aware of reality, but people are often unaware that there are 2 realities, right? Because the reality of this oil spill is, for us, it's horrible. It's scary. But the other reality is that we have to live our lives. You know, I've got an 8- and 10-year-old. My friends have children. This cannot be the summer that our children see their parents cry and moan and lose it, okay?
Right.
We have to figure out that our golf courses are still up and running. We still have freshwater lakes to fish in. We still have beaches. We may not go in the water, but the beaches are still beautiful, okay? Our restaurants, our shops are still open. And this is not the summer that we cry. This is the summer that our children learn about the environment, and the summer that we have friends who come in from all over the country who help us when we need help.
Right. A great perspective. Thank you so much, Andy.
Absolutely. Honored to be here.
Check out your new book, The Heart Mender.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. Again, be sure to pick up Andy's latest book. It's called The Heart Mender. It's available online and in bookstores.